and welcome to my prediction show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for a great response on my video last night. I'm just checking how many views it's had. I'm really pleased. As some of you may know, I really felt down about my YouTube in recent times, and on last night I put up the Bulgaria England review, and it's had nearly 2,000 views. So thank you so much for everyone who's watched that. If you haven't already, feel free to go check it out. I would really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching this video as well. I really do appreciate it. Today we will be looking at the Premier League games for this weekend, starting on the 19th of October. On the 20th of October, there's only one game. That is Manchester United versus Liverpool, one of the biggest games to take place in England every season. There's also a game on Monday night. If you haven't already, feel free to smash the like button and subscribe, of course, if you're new. But without further ado, let's get on into the video. The first game is live on BT Sport at 12:30, and that game is between Everton and West Ham. West Ham have had a decent start to the season with them in 8th place. They've had 3 wins, 3 draws and 2 defeats. Defeats coming against Crystal Palace and Manchester City. In the last 5 games, we've had a defeat to Palace, 2 draws to Villa and to Bournemouth, a win over Manchester United and a win over Norwich. So they are in 8th place, and I think that they'd be pretty pleased with their start to the season, particularly after the first game. I was a little bit worried about them when they lost 5-0 to Manchester City. But they seemed to have picked up since then, and they've done pretty well. Only 1 loss since then. Everton, they're really struggling. I'm really surprised to see how badly they've been doing. 7 points, and they're in 18th place. They're in the relegation zone, which is not good enough. 2 wins, 1 draw, and 5 defeats, which is the second most, joint with Southampton and Watford. Only Norwich have managed more defeats so far this season, on 6. In the last 5 games, they won 1 against Wolves, winning that 3-2. And since that, a loss to Bournemouth, a loss to Sheffield United, a loss to Manchester City, and a loss to Burnley. And I think that if they lose this game, I think it will be the end of the road for Marco Silva. I just don't think he is good enough for what they want. I don't think he was the right man. He's done well in certain circumstances, but this season it's been atrocious, and I don't think he will be able to get them where they want to be. They spend a decent amount of money for a club like Everton, and they don't seem to be getting any reward at the moment, and they've been very poor. They've only scored 6 goals all season, and they've conceded 13, which isn't the most, but that's still a lot of goals to concede. It is going to be at the end of the road for Marco Silva, in my opinion. I think that West Ham will win this game. I'm going to go 2-1 to West Ham, with Pellegrini's men getting the victory. I just don't see Everton getting out of this rut at the moment under Marco Silva, and I think Marco Silva will be the next manager to be sacked. We have 6 games kicking off at 3 o'clock, so lots of games to get into on Soccer Saturday if you watch that, or Final Score if you watch that one, or BT Sports Score if you watch that one. So some really good games. The first is Aston Villa versus Brighton. Aston Villa are in 15th and Brighton are in 14th. The last 5 games for Brighton, a 3-0 victory over Tottenham. That was a very good win before the international break. 2 defeats to Chelsea and to Manchester City, as you probably would expect. Then draws with Burnley and draw with Newcastle. So they're not doing too bad. I think that they'll probably stay up, but I did tip them to go down this season. 15th we find Aston Villa, who in the last 5 games have won 1, drew 2 and lost 2. Their last victory was the last game they played against Norwich, winning 5-1. That was an absolute hammering at Carrow Road by Aston Villa. Then 2 draws they've had were against Burnley, a 2-2 draw there, and then a 0-0 with West Ham. Defeats to Crystal Palace and to Arsenal. In both games, they probably deserve something from the game. So not doing too bad under Dean Smith at all. So I think this one will be tight. I don't think there'll be a lot between it, but because Aston Villa are at home, I'm going to go with Aston Villa. I'm going to go 2-1 to Aston Villa, just because they've got home advantage, and I think that might be a way of them getting the 3 points. Next, we have Bournemouth versus Norwich. And despite Norwich beating Manchester City at home the other week, it has been quite a poor start in my opinion for Norwich. They've conceded 21 goals, they've lost 6 games already, so I don't think it's been good enough despite our win against Manchester City. The last 5 games, a 2-0 defeat to West Ham, and obviously that 3-2 win over Manchester City, a 2-0 defeat to Burnley, a 2-0 defeat to Crystal Palace, and a 5-1 mauling by Aston Villa. I think that their relegation following, I think they will go down. I tipped them to go down at the start of the season, and when they got that victory over Manchester City, I thought, oh, they're going to kick on, but that's the opposite of what they've done. Bournemouth, on the other hand, they're in 10th place with 11 points, the same amount of points as Tottenham Hotspur. They've won 2 games, lost 2 and drawn 1 of their last 5 games, with a defeat to Leicester and to Arsenal, wins against Everton and Southampton, and a draw against West Ham. So there's not a great deal to dissect there. A few wins, a few draws and a few defeats in the last sort of 6 games. So my prediction for this game, I think Bournemouth will get the victory. I think Bournemouth will beat Norwich. I think Norwich are in a world of trouble. They've not won a game so far away. They've not even picked up a point so far away. They're the only team in the Premier League not to have gained a single point away from home so far this season. They've lost every single game, scoring once, conceding 10. And that 1 goal was scored on the opening night against Liverpool. So that is cause for concern, and I don't see that stopping. So I'm going to go for a 3-1 win to Bournemouth. No one's kept a clean sheet so far in my predictions. However, that is about to change. Next, we have Chelsea versus Newcastle, and Chelsea are in 5th place and are hoping to finish with a top 4 finish come the end of the season. And they are on 14th point, the same as Leicester, who are in 4th, but they have a slightly better goal difference. So Chelsea are in 5th. They have conceded 14 goals so far under Frank Lampard this season in the Premier League, which is very, very high. That's more than Everton in 18th, that is more than Newcastle in 16th, and that is more than Brighton in 14th, and Aston Villa in 15th. So that's quite a lot of goals to concede, in my opinion. It's by far the most out of any of them in the top half of the table. In their last 5 games, they've won 3, drawn 1 and lost 1. Their wins come against Southampton, against Brighton and against the Wolves. Defeat coming against Liverpool, as you probably would expect, and then a 2-2 draw with Sheffield United. And I think Lampard has started to get things right. I think they're starting to look a little bit better. They looked very shaky and very, very poor in their opening game against Manchester United. When they were ripped apart, they just fell apart, and I think if that game was played now, that game would end up in a different result. I think Chelsea would probably go on and draw the game or win. In my opinion, I think Chelsea would get the better of Manchester United. And that's not just because of Manchester United's bad form, but I think it's because Chelsea have improved a lot under new manager Frank Lampard. Newcastle, they've been very, very poor. They're on 8 points currently, 2 draws, 2 defeats and 1 win. Draws against Watford and Brighton. Defeats against Liverpool, as you would expect, and Leicester, they lost 5-0. And then they followed that up with a 1-0 victory over Manchester United at home. So a very, very good win there. But Manchester United, they're not doing too well away from home, but Newcastle took full advantage of that and got the victory. However, I can't see them going to Chelsea and getting anything. I'm going to go 2-0 to Chelsea. Next, we have Leicester versus Burnley. Leicester are in the top 4 as things stand, with 4th place. They have 14 points and have already scored 14 goals so far this season, which I think is the joint 3rd highest, which isn't too bad, or 4th highest, sorry. In the last 5 games, 3 wins and 2 defeats. The win against Bournemouth, against Tottenham and against Newcastle. And then defeats to Manchester United and to Liverpool, with a late penalty for Liverpool there, keeping their unbeaten record, 100% start. Kept that going, which is fantastic for them. They are miles in front at the moment as things stand. So Leicester, they're doing fine. Burnley are in 7th. They're not having a bad season at all. They have won 2, drawn 2 and lost 1 of their last 5 games. That defeat coming against Liverpool, draws against Brighton and against Aston Villa, and then wins against Norwich and Everton. So I don't think there's a great deal between these teams, but I think that Leicester are just better and better at different areas, and they are a better team. So I think Leicester will get the victory, particularly because they're at home. They demolished Newcastle last time out at the King Power Stadium, and I can't see them losing again. So I'm going to go for a Leicester win. I'm going to go 2-0 to Leicester in that one. Tottenham versus Watford is our next game. Tottenham are in 9th place with 11 points, and they've had a very, very iffy start to the season. And Watford are in bottom with just 3 points picked up, and are the only team yet to pick up a victory. So they've had some games in the Cups as well, so we're going to focus on that. In their last 5 games in all competitions, not just the Premier League, defeat to Leicester 2-1. They went to Colchester and lost on penalties. A 2-1 victory over Southampton. And then the Bayern Munich game when they lost 7-2, and then that 3-0 defeat to Brighton. I think he is under pressure here, but I do believe he deserves a bit more time. I don't think they should do anything rash right now, because he's done so well. And remember, Tottenham were like a Europa League club before he came in, and now they're established Champions League club. So I think he deserves more time. I don't think they should do anything rash at the moment. Last 5 games for Watford. They have had, in their last 5 Premier League games, a draw against Newcastle. Then Javi Gracia was sacked. They brought in Quique Sanchez-Flores. They drew with Arsenal, and that seemed like it was going to be a turning point. Then they lost 8-0 to Manchester City, and then I thought, well, I don't know what's going on now, because they pick up a good point against Arsenal at home, and then they go to the Etihad and get absolutely mauled. Then they played Wolves, and they lost 2-0. And then the last time out they drew 0-0 with Sheffield United. So they are picking up a few points here and there, but they're also losing, particularly away from home. They scored 4 goals so far this season in the Premier League, one of which was away from home. So it's not been very good for Watford away from home, and I don't see Tottenham slipping up. The last time Tottenham had an international break, they beat Crystal Palace 4-0. So I think Tottenham will get the win. I'm going to go for them to win comfortably. I'm going to go 3-0 to Tottenham. So Wolves versus Southampton now. Wolves are currently in 11th place with 10 points so far this season, 7 of which have been picked up in their last 3 games. So it looks like Wolves have turned the corner after a very, very poor start. Draw against Crystal Palace, and then wins against Watford and Manchester City going to Etihad and winning 2-0 there. So I think they've turned the corner and will be pushing up the table and looking for those Europa League spots once again. Southampton are in 17th place, and I just cannot work them out. They look good against some teams and look dreadful against others. So they're really hard to predict. In the last 5 games, they drew 1-1 with Manchester United, a 1-0 win over Sheffield United, and then a 3-1 defeat to Bournemouth, a 2-1 defeat to Tottenham, and a 4-1 defeat to Chelsea. So it's not good in the last few games. It's been 3 defeats in a row, and they're on the same level points with Everton. If Everton were to pick up points in the early kickoff, then Southampton would go into the relegation zone for this game. I think that Wolves will win this game just because they've turned that corner. They won the last 2 games. They went to City and won, and I think that will be key for this season. I think they won in the Europa League as well. So I think they've turned the corner now, and I think they will go on and be much better in the Premier League as well as the Europa League as well. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to Wolves. I think Wolves will win that game. The 5:30 game is Crystal Palace versus Manchester City. I remember how key this game was last season. Right at the end of the season, Sterling got 2 and Gabriel Jesus right at the end made it 3-1 with Milivojevic scoring as well. So I remember how key this game was last season. Obviously, I actually went to the Man City versus Crystal Palace home game when Crystal Palace ran out 3-2 winners. Anyway, the last 5 games for City in the Premier League: 2 defeats to Wolves and to Norwich, wins against Brighton, against Watford and against Everton for Manchester City. Crystal Palace are in 6th place, which I think they're having a very good season. In the last 5 games in the Premier League: a 1-0 win over Aston Villa, a 1-1 draw with Wolves, a 4-0 defeat to Tottenham, a 2-0 victory over Norwich, and a 2-1 victory over West Ham. So they're going fairly well, but I think City will react to their defeats like they did against Norwich and win. They won 8-0 against Watford. So don't think it'll be like a cricket score like it was against Watford, but I think City will go out and win. I'm going to go 2-0 to City. I think City will get the victory. Sunday's game is Manchester United versus Liverpool. Liverpool are absolutely flying. 8 games, 8 wins, 20 goals scored, 6 goals conceded, 24 points and 8 wins in a row. That is brilliant from Liverpool. Manchester United, on the other hand, very, very poor. 9 points so far this season, which is the same as newly promoted Sheffield United and Brighton, and less points than Bournemouth, Burnley and Crystal Palace. 2 wins, 3 defeats and 3 draws in the last 5 games. They drew with Southampton, beat Leicester 1-0, a 2-0 defeat to West Ham, a 1-1 draw with Arsenal, and then a 1-0 defeat to Newcastle United. Last 5 games for Liverpool, don't really obviously know how it went, but 2-1 over Leicester, 1-0 over Sheffield United, 2-1 over Chelsea, 3-1 over Newcastle, and then a 3-0 victory over Burnley. This game, I would be amazed if this game went any other way than a Liverpool victory. Liverpool are miles ahead of Manchester United at the moment. They've already picked up 15 more points than them in 8 games in. And I think Liverpool haven't won there for a while. I remember them winning when they come runners up back in 2014. I'm not sure if they won since then, and it seems they do get unstuck at Manchester United. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer needs to get a victory or he will be under enormous pressure, and I think that won't come. I think Liverpool will win. I think they'll win comfortably, and I think that they will end up sacking Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I'm going 3-0 to Liverpool. I think Liverpool will dominate this game and win comfortably, and Manchester United will be embarrassed on their home patch. The final game is Sheffield United versus Arsenal. I will be doing a watch along for this, so if anyone fancies watching that, I'd really appreciate it. Arsenal are doing very well. They are in 3rd place with 15 points. If Manchester City were to drop points against Crystal Palace, they could go above them in the 2nd place. In their last 5 games, a 1-0 win over Bournemouth, a 3-2 victory over Aston Villa, and then a 1-1 draw with United, a 2-2 draw with Tottenham, and then a 2-2 draw with Watford. Sheffield United's last 5 games, 1 victory over Everton, 2 draws with Chelsea and with Watford, and then 2 defeats to Liverpool and to Southampton. Even in those defeats, I don't think Sheffield United have looked too bad. They just need to score more goals. And if think about it, if they'd have scored against Watford, they'd have won that game. If they'd have scored against Southampton, they'd have got a point. If they'd scored against Liverpool, they'd have got a point, and they'd probably deserve to get a point against Liverpool. I thought they were absolutely brilliant. But I think Arsenal will go there and get the victory, despite how their away form has been in recent seasons. They've won 1, drew 2, and lost 1 of their 4 games so far this season in the Premier League away from home. Defeat coming against Liverpool, the victory coming against Newcastle, and then draws against United and against Watford. So it's not been the best. Home form for Sheffield United, they have won 1, which was against Crystal Palace, and then lost their last 3 to Leicester, to Southampton and to Liverpool. So some tough opposition in all fairness. I'm going to go for an Arsenal win, but I'm not going to go for them to absolutely dominate and win by like a few goals. I think it's going to be quite a cagey type game, but I think Arsenal have Aubameyang, and I think Aubameyang could be the difference in this game. I'm going to go Sheffield United 0, Arsenal 1. And those are my predictions. If you haven't already put your predictions in, feel free to get them in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think and how you think this game will go. But thanks so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. Give the video a like if you haven't already. And of course, if you are watching until the end and you are new, feel free to subscribe as well. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. My name is Mike, and I will see you soon.